There is a very important hearing of the Supreme Court which has begun. It is a proceeding which will decide whether the Maharashtra governor's order to allow a floor test on the floor of the State Assembly is illegal or illegal. In the process, there will be a decision effectively on the fate of the Maharashtra government. This is based on an appeal from the beleaguered Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, who's argued that the governor's order is illegal since the 16 rebel MLAs are yet to respond on their possible disqualification from the State Assembly. Are you confused? Don't worry. I'll put it simply. Uddhav Thackeray does not want a floor test right now. He says you cannot have a floor test till it is decided whether the rebel Shiv Sena MLAs are disqualified or not. The rebels say possible disqualification has nothing to do with proving the majority, something that they'd like to do tomorrow. Now, the BJP, which is watching proceedings closely, wants to form the government in the state. They'd approached the governor yesterday and said that a floor test was required since they believe the ruling alliance has lost its majority. And while the governor is independent, at least is meant to be independent, it appears that he has quite clearly gone by what the suggestion of the leader of the opposition has said, and has told the man on your screen over there, Uddhav Thackeray, that look, you need to prove your floor test tomorrow. Now, whether that will happen or not, we'll have to wait and see, because the crux of the argument being made in the Supreme Court right now is Abhishek Manu Singhvi arguing for the Shiv Sena, the Uddhav Thackeray group, basically saying that how can you not have disqualification proceedings first? Don't we have to know whether or not these MLAs have been disqualified or not before we can actually allow them to vote? To which the Supreme Court judges have been saying, and this is not an order, it's just an observation so far, that it's just the initiation of the process of disqualification against these MLAs which has started. And therefore, it is not enough to say that this is a full-fledged disqualification procedure which has begun, and therefore it is something that needs to take place before a floor test takes place. And that is the minutiae which is being heard in the Supreme Court now, and upon which a verdict may or may not actually, or an order may or may not actually be passed. What is the status of the disqualification proceeding which has actually begun? Is it a valid disqualification proceeding which has begun? Is it one which has followed the rules? Because if it is, then hypothetically that would need to happen first before you have a floor test. On the other hand, if the process of initiating disqualification is at its infancy, it's very new, it hasn't really gone forward, it's perhaps not been done correctly, perhaps needs to have been done differently, then perhaps the Supreme Court would rule against that order of disqualification first and floor test first, and suggest that floor test needs to take place, because it is in the floor of the assembly that you can actually gauge or have an exact idea of who is on which side. So that's what's taking place. Abhishek Manu Singhvi is telling the Supreme Court, your lordships are not barred from reviewing the governor's decision. Remember, the governor yesterday had told the Supreme Court that had told Uddhav Thackeray that he believes the floor test needs to take place tomorrow on Friday. Singhvi says, what is the scope of immunity of Article 361? They are bound to cite it. 361 only means the court will not make the governor a party and issue a notice to him. That is why we take care to make the secretary a party. I haven't really understood this point. But let's go across to Arvind Gunasekara, who joins us for more on this. Arvind, what exactly are some of the arguments taking place in the Supreme Court now? Again, let's hasten to add, these are only arguments by one lawyer. There will be many lawyers who will be arguing, representing all sides. Go ahead, Arvind.
Yeah, Vishnu, on the aspect of the governor's role, or whether Supreme Court or any constitutional court for that matter can direct the governor, that the governors or any constitutional authority like president, governor, etc., they have some kind of immunity. They cannot be made part of any proceedings, any court proceedings. So they have immunity under Article 361, if I'm right, for governor. So that's where Singhvi is saying that though a governor has immunity, that does not mean that Supreme Court cannot pass an order on the decision or the direction of a governor. That's why in this particular case, governor has not been made as a respondent or a party in this case. In fact, a principal secretary to governor has been made a party, and that's why if the court finds that the decision of the governor to summon or to to call for the assembly for a floor test tomorrow. If the court finds that that's wrong, then the courts can courts can review that particular decision, and courts can actually put that particular call on hold. In fact, there have been several such cases also. Even last time, let's say, but in the case of Arunachal Pradesh, when the governor preponed the date of the assembly, and then when he called for the chief minister to prove his majority on the floor test, and then the date of the floor test was preponed, and then the entire presidential rule was imposed in Arunachal Pradesh. But Supreme Court undid everything. And then the Supreme Court actually put everything back to the day when the erstwhile or the earlier chief minister was in government, etc. So in this particular case also, Abhishek Manu Singhvi is arguing before the Supreme Court, saying that the courts can any day look into the decision of the governor. But if the governor says that tomorrow he is ordering a floor test, tomorrow if he is ordering the chief minister to prove his majority on the floor of the house, and if that particular decision is malified, if it's wrong, then courts can intervene in, and then courts can put a stay on it. And that's why Abhishek Manu Singhvi is inviting the Supreme Court or asking the Supreme Court to intervene in this particular decision of the governor also.